I don't have much time to write this, but I'll try to explain the batshit insane events that have gone down since my last post. After the police left that night, I went out to inspect the damage on my house in the daylight. It was awful. The claw marks were deep in the siding. I could imagine the size of whatever did this. I know what I heard, but I was beginning to second guess myself. While I had been outside, my neighbor, Jeff, walked over. Scared the shit out of me when he did. Jesus Christ, Jeff, you can't sneak up on me like that, I said after he came and tapped me on the shoulder. Jeff was my longtime neighbor, like an old Mrs. Sanchez on the other side of my house. He had brought his home when it had been built on the land. He was always nice. We would talk on occasions whenever our dogs would run around with each other. Now I could see something was off with him. The whites of his eyes were rimmed in red and wet from tears already dried. Jeff had deep bags under his eyes as well as if he hadn't slept all night. "Oh, you look like shit," I said dumbly, quickly deciding to apologize. Jeff spoke before I could. "Yeah, I feel like it. Did, He leaned around me and eyed the state of my house. Did something happen last night?" Yeah, some animal or something was outside my window getting Zeus all riled up. Called the cops and the guy didn't seem too worried about it. Got a camera coming in on Friday to try and see if anything comes back, I explained, noticing Jeff's dog weren't by his side like usual. "Where's Mikey and B?" I asked curiously. I could see the emotions in his eyes immediately after I spoke, my heart aching as I understood. Something got him last night. I didn't see what. I heard him barking, then yelping. I ran outside with my gun. After I got it out of the case, it was already gone by then. He rubbed his eyes roughly. "Jeff, man, I'm so sorry." I put a hand on his shoulder and he shook his head. "It's fine. I already got them. What's left of them. I got them in my truck. I'm going out to my hunting cabin for a few days to bury them. I just want to give you this." He was holding something in his hands. I looked and frowned. No, I'm not a gun enthusiast or anything, so I don't know what kind of gun he was handing me. It was small, maybe some kind of revolver. Jeff had a box of ammo in his other hand. "Look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what could have killed my girls, but they were fighters, rescues. They knew how to defend themselves. Even if it was a mountain lion, one of them would have got away. I want you and your wife to be safe." I didn't know what to say to that. I had never seen this man so dead serious. Even if I didn't think I needed it, I nodded with a tight-lipped expression as I took the gun from his hand. Jeff thankfully explained to me how to safely operate and load it before I watched him walk back across the yard to his house. A moment later, he was pulling out of his driveway and speeding down the road. I let Leah know what happened and sat with her while she had a long cry about it. I was teary-eyed about it too at the time. Obviously, they hadn't been for our dogs, but it was hard knowing we wouldn't see them again. The idea of something happening to our dog was also hanging in the air. I wasn't sure what I expected to happen, but Zeus woke us up both growling and barking as he clawed at the wall like he wasn't a half pint. We knew calling the police wouldn't do anything, so we sat there all night, lights off, as That long whistle emanated from outside. I wish that I could say it never came back after that. God, I wish I could say it left us alone. That isn't what happened though. I thought I would lose my mind last night when I couldn't take the sleep deprivation anymore. Every night it was whistling outside our window, and we were both exhausted and scared. Last night was my breaking point. I can't do this anymore, Leah, I said with a harsh whisper as I got out of bed. Zeus losing his mind once again as that frickin' whistle was continuing outside. My wife's eyes, exhausted yet filled with worry, crawled out of bed as I opened the drawer on the bedside table. I honestly didn't know exactly what I was going to do when I pulled out the revolver Jeff had given me. "What the hell are you doing?" Leah hissed as she grabbed my arm. I shook my head as I shakily loaded it. I had never touched a gun since Jeff had put it into my hands. I didn't think I would need it until now. Chris, come on, this isn't funny," she whispered, pleading as I gently pulled my arm away and left the bedroom. She followed, her footsteps on creaky floors just behind me. "I'm going to end this right now," I said seriously as I kept the lights off, entering the kitchen to rifle through the nearby drawer. I could feel my wife's gaze on my back as I felt around until I found what I had been looking for. With a click, I tested the flashlight. It was one of those with a high luminance count that I brought because I assumed I would need it. I hadn't used it but 2 other times, so I figured it could finally make itself useful as I got some duct tape from the drawer as well. "Please, don't go out there," Leah begged from the doorway. I quickly taped the light to the gun, hoping the added weight wouldn't mess up my already amateur aim. I clicked it off for now and looked at Leah's silhouette in the doorway. "Look, if it's a bear or whatever, I'll just scare it off. And tomorrow we can try to pack things up. We can get a hotel and see if your parents will let us crash for a week or 2 while we figure it out," I said with less confidence than I had intended. I couldn't see her face after having the lights turned off, but I could tell she wasn't convinced. "But what if I stopped her as I walked over? If I'm not back in 5 minutes, just call the police, okay?" I said, not giving any more room for argument. I slipped past her and checked to make sure the safety was off. Leah didn't respond as I unlocked the door and clicked on my light. Just as I pulled the door open, Zeus rocketed past my legs and vanished into the darkness. Panic flooded my body as I immediately took off after him. Our porch didn't have any railings and was only a foot or 2 high, so I followed after his barking unhindered. My blood went ice cold when I heard a pitiful yelp. I ran faster around the side of my house, aiming my gun and attached flashlight ahead of me. What I saw next made my stomach churn. In the beam of the flashlight was something. I don't know what the hell that thing was. It was big, easily taller than me. If it was standing, its skin was a stickly white, like it was almost translucent. The thing had its back to me, and I could see its spine like the skin was vacuum sealed to the bone. It was like a walking skeleton. It was then that my eyes recognized the sick sound of flesh and bone tearing from one another. The beam of my flashlight shook as I slowly pointed it to the ground by the creature. It was Zeus. My once excitable dog was now laying lifeless on the ground, his unseeing eyes staring back at me. "Jesus Christ," I whimpered as I hurled whatever was in my stomach. I had just realized that all I saw was his head. It wasn't attached to his body anymore. As my stomach emptied itself on the ground, I backed up and tried to train my gun on this monster. My hands trembled as it was now looking right back at me. It didn't have a freaking face. Where a face should have been was a pitch black hole. At the bottom of it, where the white skin still showed, was red from my dog's blood. We stood there for a moment before it let out a long and loud whistle. I didn't think, I just pulled the trigger. The moment my trembling shot struck its shoulder, it jolted back in what seemed to be pain. I didn't wait to find out as I turned tail and ran. The noise that followed scared me more than anything I've ever heard before. It was like a high-pitched, inhuman scream. I've never heard anything like it before, and I hope to never hear it again. I scrambled onto my porch and hopped to whatever freaking God was out there that it wasn't right behind me. I threw the door open and flung myself against it to close it. Leah screamed at my sudden appearance. I could see she was on the phone. "You tell them to send freaking cops right now," I shouted as I locked the door. She did as I instructed, as I slid down the door and sat the gun next to me. I sat on the floor sobbing after that. I was in shock until then, but who wouldn't be? The next thing I knew, Leah was sitting next to me on the couch, saying that the police were gone. I didn't realize how much time had passed, but her expression was grim. "They said a mountain lion or coyote got him. There wasn't anything out there but him," Leah said quietly. I shook my head. "It wasn't an animal. It wasn't human," I said quietly, still shell-shocked. "Are you sure?" she asked. I nodded. That image of it and stared into my mind. "Are you sure?" she asked. As I nodded, that image of it and blood stared into my mind. We both agreed to just start packing tonight and leave as soon as we could the next day. We have most of it in random boxes and bags we found in our closet. I'm trying to write this as quickly as I can while she is taking everything out of the car. It took almost a day to find our keys, so now we are rushing to get out of here. I made a drawing of what I saw. I don't know what this thing was, but I needed to get it out of my head. If anyone recognizes it, please let me know. And if you hear something whistling outside your house at night, don't go looking for it. This is going to be my only update. As we've decided to just sell the house, it's starting to get dark. But I think I hear my wife in the hallway. It's weird though. Leah doesn't know how to whistle.